Welcome to the foundational principles of economics, where we unravel the mysteries behind how markets operate. At the very core of any market economy lie two powerful, interconnected forces: supply and demand. These concepts are not just abstract theories, they are the invisible hand that shapes our daily economic lives. Adam Smith, a pioneering economist, famously described this interaction as an invisible hand guiding market participants. This unseen mechanism efficiently allocates resources and determines the prices and quantities of virtually all goods and services we consume. Understanding supply and demand is essential for anyone seeking to comprehend the dynamics of commerce. Grasping these fundamental forces is crucial for understanding how markets function in the real world. It provides the lens through which we can analyze why prices fluctuate, why certain products become scarce, and why others are abundant. This knowledge is not just for economists, it is vital for every student to make sense of economic decisions. From the cost of your morning coffee to the price of a new smartphone, supply and demand are constantly at play. They dictate how resources are distributed and how value is assigned within an economy. By the end of this discussion, you will have a solid grasp of these indispensable economic principles. Let's begin by exploring the concept of demand. In economics, demand represents more than just a simple desire for something. It specifically refers to consumers' willingness and ability to purchase a particular good or service at a given price. Both willingness and ability are critical components of this definition. The relationship between price and the quantity consumers are willing and able to buy is formalized by the law of demand. This law states that there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded, assuming all other factors remain constant. As the price of a good increases, the quantity demanded by consumers will decrease. Conversely, if the price of a good decreases, consumers will typically demand a greater quantity of that good. This inverse relationship is a fundamental observation in market behavior. Think about how you might buy more of your favorite snack if its price drops significantly. Several factors influence this demand relationship beyond just price. A consumer's willingness to pay is shaped by their perceived value of the good. The availability of substitutes also plays a significant role. If many alternatives exist, demand for a specific product might be more sensitive to price changes. Furthermore, a consumer's income directly impacts their purchasing power and thus their demand for various goods and services. Changes in income can lead to significant shifts in buying patterns. These factors collectively determine the overall demand for a product. When we represent demand graphically, we use a demand curve. This curve typically slopes downwards from left to right. This downward slope visually illustrates the inverse relationship between price, shown on the vertical axis, and quantity demanded, shown on the horizontal axis. It's important to distinguish between a movement along the demand curve and a shift of the entire curve. A change in the price of the good itself causes a movement along the existing demand curve. However, shifts in the demand curve are caused by changes in factors other than the good's price. For example, changes in consumer preferences, such as a new trend making a product more desirable, can shift the entire demand curve to the right, indicating an increase in demand at every price level. Similarly, an increase in consumer income can lead to a rightward shift for normal goods. Conversely, a decrease in consumer income or a negative change in preferences could shift the demand curve to the left. The price of related goods, like substitutes or complements, also influences demand shifts. If the price of a substitute falls, demand for the original good might decrease, shifting its curve left. These shifts can significantly impact market dynamics and the overall economic landscape. Now, let's turn our attention to the other side of the market equation: supply. In economic terms, supply refers to the quantity of a good or service that producers are willing and able to offer for sale at a given price. Just like demand, both willingness and ability are crucial for defining supply. The relationship between price and the quantity producers are willing to sell is described by the law of supply. This law states that there is a direct relationship between price and quantity supplied, assuming all other factors remain constant. As the price of a good increases, the quantity supplied by producers will also increase. Conversely, if the price of a good decreases, producers will typically offer a smaller quantity for sale. This direct relationship is driven by the profit motive inherent in most production decisions. Higher prices generally mean higher potential profits, incentivizing producers to increase output. The primary factor influencing this supply relationship is the producer's desire to maximize profits. When market prices are high, it becomes more attractive for firms to produce and sell more units, as each unit sold contributes more to their bottom line. This incentive drives the positive correlation between price and quantity supplied. Graphically, supply is represented by a supply curve, which typically slopes upwards from left to right. This upward slope visually depicts the direct relationship between price, on the vertical axis, and quantity supplied, on the horizontal axis. It shows that as prices rise, so does the quantity producers are willing to bring to market. Similar to demand, it's crucial to differentiate between a movement along the supply curve and a shift of the entire curve. A change in the price of the good itself causes a movement along the existing supply curve. However, shifts in the supply curve are caused by changes in factors other than the goods price. For instance, changes in input costs, such as the price of raw materials or labor, can significantly affect supply. If input costs decrease, producers can supply more at each price level, shifting the supply curve to the right. Conversely, an increase in input costs would shift the curve to the left. Technological advancements also play a vital role in shifting the supply curve. New technologies can make production more efficient, reducing costs and allowing producers to supply more goods at the same price, leading to a rightward shift. The number of sellers in the market also impacts supply. An increase in the number of firms producing a good will generally lead to an increase in overall market supply, shifting the curve to the right. These shifts are powerful forces that can reshape market conditions. When we bring supply and demand together, we observe their interaction, which determines market equilibrium. This is the point where the forces of supply and demand balance each other out, leading to a stable market price and quantity. It is the natural resting place for a competitive market. The equilibrium point is found where the supply and demand curves intersect on a graph. At this specific intersection, the quantity that consumers are willing and able to buy precisely matches the quantity that producers are willing and able to sell. This is often referred to as the market clearing price. At the equilibrium price, there is no pressure for the price to change, assuming all other factors remain constant. The market is in balance, with neither a surplus nor a shortage of the good. Every buyer willing to pay the equilibrium price finds a seller, and every seller willing to sell at that price finds a buyer. However, markets are not always in perfect equilibrium. Imbalances can occur. A surplus, also known as excess supply, happens when the market price is set above the equilibrium price. At this higher price, the quantity supplied by producers exceeds the quantity demanded by consumers. When a surplus exists, producers find themselves with unsold goods. This excess inventory creates downward pressure on prices, as sellers compete to offload their products. Prices will naturally fall until the market reaches equilibrium again, clearing the surplus. Conversely, a shortage, or excess demand, occurs when the market price is set below the equilibrium price. At this lower price, the quantity demanded by consumers exceeds the quantity supplied by producers. Consumers are willing to buy more than what is available. When a shortage exists, consumers are unable to purchase all they desire at the current price. This unmet demand creates upward pressure on prices, as buyers compete for the limited available goods. Prices will naturally rise until the market reaches equilibrium, alleviating the shortage. The constant interplay of these forces drives markets towards equilibrium. Understanding supply and demand allows us to analyze and predict various market phenomena. These fundamental tools provide a framework for explaining why prices change and how quantities adjust in response to different economic events. Let's consider a few practical applications. Imagine a popular new video game console is released, accompanied by a massive advertising campaign. This would likely lead to a significant increase in consumer preferences and awareness, causing the demand curve for the console to shift to the right. With an unchanged supply, this increase in demand would result in both a higher equilibrium price and a higher equilibrium quantity for the console. Consumers are willing to pay more, and producers respond by supplying more at that new, higher price. Now, consider a different scenario, a breakthrough in manufacturing technology for solar panels. This technological advancement would reduce the cost of producing solar panels, making it more profitable for producers. This would cause the supply curve for solar panels to shift to the right, indicating that producers can now offer more panels at every price level. With an unchanged demand, this increase in supply would lead to a lower equilibrium price and a higher equilibrium quantity. Consumers benefit from lower prices, and more panels are sold. These examples illustrate how shifts in either supply or demand, or both, can dramatically alter market outcomes. The ability to trace these shifts and their consequences is a powerful analytical skill derived directly from understanding supply and demand. It helps us understand everything from housing markets to global commodity prices. In conclusion, supply and demand are not merely academic concepts, they are the core principles governing all market economies. They are the invisible architects that determine how prices are set for goods and services, from basic necessities to luxury items. These forces also dictate how scarce resources are allocated among competing uses. Furthermore, supply and demand explain how markets respond dynamically to changes in consumer tastes, technological innovations, government policies, and global events. They are the fundamental building blocks for understanding virtually every aspect of economics. Mastering these concepts provides an invaluable foundation for comprehending the complex world around us.